All right, this time we've got some more of this stuff from Algebra 2, stuff that we learned for a reason, evidently. All right, we're going to use difference of squares to solve this little trig equation. I'm trying to get my shadow out of the way here. All right. So first off, I'm going to move the 1 over. So we got 4 cosine squared x minus 1 is equal to 0. And then the reason we can use difference of squares here is because 4 cosine squared is a perfect square. All right, it's equal to 2 cosine times itself. All right, 2 cosine, times itself will give you 4 cosine squared. And then 1, this piece, is equal to 1 times itself. So I've got, a perfect square and a perfect square. Here's my 1, and here's my 4 cosine squared. So it's going to be that plus 1. Right, that's that first factor. And then 2 cosine x minus 1. That's my second factor there, is equal to 0. All right, now that it's in factored form, I can go ahead and apply that zero product property where I take each of those and then set them equal to 0. So I'm going to do 2 cosine x plus 1 is equal to 0. And let's see here. I'm going to move my 1 over. So 2 cosine x is equal to negative 1. And then I'm going to divide by 2. So I've got cosine x is equal to negative 1/2. All right, I'll come back to that. Let me go ahead and set this one equal to 0. And my first step, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So 2 cosine x is equal to 1. And then I'm going to divide by 2. So I'm going to get cosine x is equal to 1/2. So what's nice here is that I've got cosine is equal to positive 1/2 and it's equal to negative 1/2. So I'm actually going to be in all 4 quadrants this time. All right. So let me, I'll try to draw my little quadrant thing up here. All right, so right here, actually let's do the positive version first. Because cosine is equal to positive 1/2, I know I'm dealing with a quadrant 1 and quadrant 4 angle. I just got to remind myself of where cosine, for what angle is cosine equal to positive 1/2. So cosine, positive 1/2, it occurs at my 60-degree angle. Right? So one of my answers is equal to 60 degrees. All right, so that's that one right there. Now the reference angle for that in the 4th quadrant would be right here, which I believe is 300. Yep, x equals 300. And then because we're dealing with a negative 1/2 as well, I know I can go ahead and use the quadrant 2 version, all right, which is going to be, if that's 60, then this is going to be 120. All right. So 120. So cosine of 120 is going to give me negative 1/2. And then I also want that quadrant 3 version as well. So 120, this one's going to be 240. Right? X equals 240 degrees. And then, of course, you could do the plus or minus 360 in, right? But 60, 300, 120, and 240, those are the 4 answers between 0 and 360 that will satisfy this equation, okay? And then if you wanted it in radians, you could do that as well. 60 degrees, 60 would be the same as pi over 3. 300 degrees, boy, I scratch my head here. That's equal to 5 pi over 3. And then for 120, write that here. 120 would be the same as 2 pi over 3. And then for 240, that would be equal to 4 pi over 3. All right, so you got your answers now in radians which are way better, and you have them in degrees. You just got to add that plus or minus 360 part. Now, the other way that we could have done this problem, just want to mention it here. I could have divided by 4 and got 1/4 here, and then I could take the square root of both sides to get rid of that squared part. So the square root of cosine squared, that's just going to leave me with cosine x. And the square root of 1/4, well, that's the square root of 1 over the square root of 4. So that's going to be plus or minus 1/2. And then here's where you could get your two cases just like we did earlier. So without factoring, we could have wrote our two cases the same way. The positive 1/2 version and the negative 1/2 version.